The battle inside his mind. When a man cheats, his brain becomes a battlefield. Not metaphorically, neurologically. This isn't just about poor decisions or weak morals. It is about two competing identities fighting for control inside the same mind. And the human brain does not handle internal contradictions quietly. It reacts, it strains, it leaks. On one side, he still wants to see himself as loyal, disciplined, dependable, the good man, the protector, the provider, the one who would never do that. That identity is not small to him. It is central. It is the story he tells himself about who he is. Over the years, he has built that image carefully. Maybe he prides himself on being different from other men. Maybe he believes he stands for integrity. Maybe he has always criticized cheaters in the past. That self-image protects his ego. It preserves his dignity. It allows him to feel stable and in control. It allows him to sleep at night. It allows him to look you in the eyes without immediately collapsing under guilt. Because as long as he still believes he is fundamentally a good man, he can rationalize behavior that contradicts it. But on the other side, something else is feeding him. Attention, novelty, validation, sexual excitement, ego reinforcement. And the brain responds powerfully to those things. When someone new shows interest, the reward system activates. Dopamine rises, the same chemical associated with motivation and craving. Anticipation becomes intoxicating. The possibility of being desired again, admired again, chosen again, it lights up parts of the brain that routine cannot always sustain. Long-term relationships bring stability and safety. New attention brings stimulation and unpredictability is neurologically exciting. Secrecy adds another layer. Hidden conversations, private jokes, moments no one else knows about. The risk itself creates adrenaline. The brain interprets risk as intensity, and intensity can be misinterpreted as passion. So now he is no longer just maintaining a relationship, he's chasing stimulation. He may not even label it as cheating at first. He may call it harmless, just talking, just texting, just enjoying the attention. But internally, something has shifted. Because those two identities, the loyal partner and the secret seeker, cannot peacefully coexist. One voice says, be loyal, protect what you built. The other whispers, this feels good, don't stop. That whisper grows louder the more he feeds it. And here is where the fracture begins. Cognitive dissonance sets in, the psychological discomfort that happens when actions and identity clash. The brain does not like inconsistency. It wants alignment. So it begins searching for ways to reduce the tension. He may start justifying. She doesn't understand me like she used to. We've been distant anyway. It's not physical, so it doesn't really count. I deserve a little happiness. Notice what is happening. Instead of changing the behavior immediately, the mind changes the story. Because if he admits he is betraying someone who trusts him, then he must also admit he is not the man he believes himself to be. And that is far more painful than continuing the behavior quietly. So he splits. Part of him continues playing the role, attentive when necessary, present when expected, saying the right things at the right time. Another part of him lives in a separate emotional lane, fueled by secrecy, ego, and stimulation. This division consumes mental energy. It creates subtle stress, subtle irritability, subtle distraction. Even if you cannot see the messages, you may feel the shift, because a divided mind cannot produce a fully grounded presence. When someone is internally aligned, their energy feels steady. When someone is internally conflicted, their energy feels fragmented. And over time, that fragmentation shows.
He may overcompensate with affection some days, withdraw on others, become unusually defensive or strangely indifferent. None of it feels consistent, because internally he is not consistent. He is managing two versions of himself, and no one can maintain that split forever without cracks forming. The battlefield inside his brain does not stay silent. It spills into tone, into body language, into timing, into subtle behavioral shifts that you cannot logically explain, but instinctively feel. Because when identity and behavior are at war, peace disappears long before proof appears. And that is where everything truly begins.
Cognitive dissonance takes over. That internal contradiction creates what psychology calls cognitive dissonance, a state of psychological discomfort that arises when a person's actions conflict with their self-image or values. It is not a small feeling. It is not light guilt that passes in a moment. It is stressful. The brain does not like holding two opposing truths at the same time. It craves consistency. It wants the story of who I am to match what I am doing. When those two don't align, the mind goes into repair mode. Inside him, two statements are colliding. I am a good man. I am betraying someone who trusts me. Those sentences cannot sit peacefully beside each other. One threatens the other. And because most people are deeply attached to their identity, the mind will often protect the identity before it corrects the behavior. So something has to bend. Either he stops the betrayal, or he reshapes the story in his head to make it feel less wrong. This is where rationalization begins. It's not serious. It's just attention. It's not physical. She doesn't even know. It's not like I don't still love her. Notice what's happening. The behavior stays the same, but the meaning gets rewritten. The mind edits the narrative to reduce tension. That is cognitive dissonance trying to resolve itself without forcing a painful decision. But even with rationalization, the strain does not disappear completely. And when the mind is under that kind of internal pressure, behavior begins to shift in subtle ways. He becomes slightly disconnected, not dramatically distant at first, just slightly off, slightly distracted. His attention drifts mid-conversation. You're speaking, but his eyes look like they're processing something else. He may nod, but he isn't fully present. Slightly irritated without clear explanation. Small questions feel bigger to him. Neutral conversations carry an edge. He reacts with mild defensiveness where calm reassurance would normally exist. Why? Because his nervous system is working overtime. He is monitoring himself constantly. What did I say earlier? Did I mention that already? Did I contradict something? Did I leave my phone face up? Did my tone sound normal? That constant internal monitoring creates stress. Stress activates the body's alert system. Cortisol rises, muscles tighten, patience shortens. The brain shifts into a mild state of threat management, even if the threat is simply being exposed. You may notice he stares off mid-conversation. That isn't always boredom. Sometimes it's a mental calculation. He may forget small details you just shared, not because he doesn't care at all, but because his cognitive load is heavier than usual. Part of his working memory is occupied by secrecy. He may respond slower to simple questions, or the opposite, respond too quickly, too sharply, as if bracing for accusation. Why are you asking that? What do you mean? You're overthinking again. A calm question can feel like interrogation to a guilty mind. Because when someone is internally conflicted, neutral moments can feel threatening. Even ordinary curiosity feels like it might uncover something. He is juggling narratives, one version of events for you, another version for someone else, and a private version inside his own head. He is managing impressions, trying to appear normal, trying to appear consistent, trying to maintain the image of loyalty while acting outside of it. He may even rehearse responses in advance, imagine conversations before they happen, prepare explanations for questions you haven't asked yet. That level of mental multitasking consumes energy. and mental exhaustion creates subtle instability. His emotional responses become less grounded. His patience fluctuates. His warmth feels inconsistent, because a divided mind cannot produce a steady presence. When someone is aligned internally, when their actions and identity match, their behavior feels calm and predictable. But when someone is living in contradiction, there is friction beneath the surface, and friction changes tone. It changes eye contact. It changes body language. It changes timing. You may not have evidence, you may not have proof, but you feel the shift. Because cognitive dissonance doesn't stay locked inside the brain, it leaks into micro-expressions, pauses, defensiveness, distance, and unexplained tension. The strain of being two different men at once is heavy, and over time, the mind shows the weight it is carrying.
The cracks begin to show. Listen carefully to the language he uses, because language is never random. It's nothing. We're just talking. You're reading too much into it. At first, those sentences sound harmless, calm, casual, almost reassuring. But slow down and examine the structure. They don't explain. They don't clarify. They don't invite transparency. They minimize. They dismiss. They reduce your concern instead of directly addressing it. There is a difference between reassurance and deflection. Reassurance sounds like, "I understand why that might look strange. Let me explain clearly." Deflection sounds like, "You're overthinking. You're being dramatic. It's not a big deal." Notice the shift. The focus moves away from his behavior and onto your reaction. Suddenly, the issue isn't what he did, it's how you're responding to it. Why? Because if he validates your suspicion, he must confront his internal conflict, and confronting it would force him to choose between the two identities he is trying to maintain, the loyal partner and the secret seeker. That is uncomfortable. So instead of choosing, he downplays. Downplaying reduces pressure. If it's nothing, then he doesn't have to feel guilty. If you're overthinking, then he doesn't have to explain. Minimizing becomes a psychological shield. And over time, you may start questioning yourself. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I'm just insecure. Maybe it really is nothing. But here's what's important. Calm honesty welcomes clarity. Defensive minimizing avoids it. Now let's talk about memory. When someone is living in alignment, their story stays steady because there is only one version of events. But when someone is managing two realities, consistency becomes harder. Details change. Stories slightly shift. Timelines don't quite align. He may say he was at one place, then later mention something that doesn't fit. He may forget what he told you last week. He may hesitate before answering something that used to be simple. It's not always calculated manipulation. Sometimes it's cognitive overload. Maintaining two realities consumes enormous mental energy. He must remember, what did I tell her? What did I tell you? Which version of events fits this conversation? That constant internal tracking drains the brain's working memory, and when working memory is strained, precision drops. The brain under stress is not sharp, it is reactive. Stress hormones interfere with focus. Anxiety disrupts recall. Guilt creates mental noise. So small inconsistencies begin to surface, not because he's a mastermind liar, but because he's mentally stretched. And here's the key point. When someone is mentally divided, their behavior reflects that division. You may notice hesitation before answering, unusual defensiveness, over-explaining small things, or being strangely vague about details that used to be simple. Subtle cracks form. Tone shifts, energy shifts, timing shifts. Not because he's a genius at deception, but because no one can carry two identities forever without something slipping through. A divided mind eventually reveals itself in divided behavior.
And the more pressure builds internally, the harder it becomes to keep everything seamless on the outside. If this message resonates with you, take a moment right now. Like this video so more people can see the signs clearly. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown of relationship psychology. And share this with someone who might need clarity instead of confusion. Because understanding behavior isn't about paranoia, it's about protecting your peace.